Hello, and welcome to Child Care Aware of America's three-part informational webinar series, Early Brain Development Tools and Resources. My name is Mary Lamantia. I'm the Senior Director for the Vroom Partnership Project here at Child Care Aware of America. Today's webinar, The Science of Vroom. I'm here to talk with you about this nationwide initiative that empowers parents and caregivers to play a proactive role in their children's early brain development. Vroom helps adults make the most of the moments already shared with the child. Vroom takes early brain science out of the lab and makes it actionable for you and me, parents and caregivers, or anyone who works with young children and families. They've translated that science into user-friendly language for you and me. Vroom is based on the latest early brain research from institutions such as Harvard, Stanford, Berkeley, New York University, and the University of Washington. Vroom's research collaborators are neuroscientists, child psychologists, child development experts from around North America. Vroom is a set of tools and resources that share the science of this early brain development. And Vroom gives us a picture of what is actually happening in your child's brain during the first 5 years of life and what you and I can do to help that brain grow. It was designed to work within existing daily routines of parents and families and within existing programs that reach out to support parents and families. So basically, Vroom makes it easy for all of us to be brain builders. That's what's exciting about that. Today, we are going to highlight some of the brain development research, and we're also going to show you how Vroom resources incorporate that science and make it actionable, something parents and caregivers can do and use every day through everyday interactions. But before we get to the science, let's hear from some parents who can give us a better sense about Vroom from their real-life experiences. So sit back and enjoy this YouTube video.
I'm really rushing all the time. I don't have enough time just to sit down with them.
Being a full-time mom and having a full-time job, it's not easy. I always worry, am I doing enough for my kids? Am I doing the important stuff that they need? Can't imagine what it's been here. Just really powerful. You got it. You already have all in favor.
Maybe I just didn't look at it that way because I always want better. You put your feet in there? No.
You know that I can do it. Which one is rough? It's amazing the little things that we do, we don't even realize we're teaching our kids.
You don't really think of brain development at that young of an age, when you're 3 months old.
Our shared goal is what is best for young children, our children. Wasn't that a terrific, motivating video? And yes, those are not actors, but real parents sharing their thoughts and feelings. Vroom was created with the firm belief that children are born with tremendous potential. Your child is born with tremendous potential. Much of that potential begins to show itself in the first 5 years of life. Did you know a child's brain develops more rapidly during the first 5 years of life than at any other time? Today, we're going to focus on those first 5 years. But don't worry if you have children older than 5. It is never too late to build a brain. During these first 5 years, a child's brain is being built like a house from the ground up. But instead of using the hammers and the nails and the wood and the other materials, your child's brain is being built by experiences and interactions they encounter in their daily life. Caregivers, parents, play an important role in supporting this brain development. Even though we can't see what's happening, every time we interact with young children, it's like fireworks going off in their brain, like the 4th of July sparklers. That's where Vroom comes in. Parents and caregivers already do many things to help those fireworks ignite. Vroom helps to show how to turn those everyday moments into brain-building moments and makes us aware that that's what we're doing. Vroom shows us it doesn't take fancy toys or money. Rather, it's in the positive, everyday interactions that caregivers build a brain. Today, in addition to the science of early brain development, we'll go beyond the science and make it relevant to your life as a caregiver, as a parent, a grandparent, an aunt or uncle, or whatever your role that you play in a child's life. What do I mean by that? Let me give you a couple examples here. So look at our next slide. We talk about Vroom and we talk about the tips. Well, this is an example of a tip. Throughout the day, everyday routines, we all have chores to complete. Well, you know what I'm talking about. And they may seem even more difficult when children are present. But these everyday moments are ripe for brain building. When we're doing the dishes, here's something that we can do with young children that also builds their brains. And this won't even make a mess. So let's look at this. I'll read it aloud. This Vroom tip is called Dirty Dishes, Goofy Giggles. It's written for the parent or caregiver of a toddler. It reads, while you clean up the dirty dishes, show your child a dirty dish and say, yuck, making a funny face. Your expression should make your child giggle. With each new dish, use new words, such as sticky or goopy. See what funny words or sounds your child comes up with too. But there's more. The brainy background, that translated science, tells us the scientific reason why this builds a child's brain. So on the right-hand side of that slide, the orange side, it's called the brainy background. Your child learns communication skills from the tone of your voice, your facial expressions, body movements, and the words you use. He also learns to love the sound of the words when you're using those funny words. So at this point, Vroom hopes the child is giggling and having fun with you, and adults should be having fun too. That's the important part of give and take. Vroom helps turn an everyday chore into something that can be fun and joyful between a parent and a child. And children learn best when they're having fun. Let me give you one more example. An everyday interaction between a child. This tip is about brushing your child's hair. Now that's something we do every day, and it's written for the parent of a preschooler. It's called His Hair, Her Hair. When you're brushing your child's hair, talk to her about how her hair compares to others. You could say, who has that curly hair like yours? Or, who has hair that is the same color as yours? Or, who has hair that is the same color as mine? You're helping them focus on different things. Now, here's the user-friendly, brainy background for that. Back and forth conversations about how your child's hair compares to others helps her learn to pay attention to what she sees, to use her memory, and to group things into categories, all important in the development of vocabulary and math skills, those pre-reading and pre-math skills that are so important for a child's success later on in school. So, in this tip, categorization is the important skill. And here you're just talking about hair. So what you're doing is you're helping child identify what's the same and what's different. And the most, all you need is a brush or a comb. So you see, Vroom activities are designed to prompt brain building moments throughout the course of everyday routine lives, those everyday activities. To complete them, a parent doesn't need to have more time in their day necessarily, and they don't need to spend extra money. But during these moments, those sparklers are igniting. Brain building is happening. You'll notice on the tip card in the bottom left-hand corner, you see the projected age range for that type of an activity. Again, these are suggested ages for you. So now let's dive deeper into the brain science. But I want to start with a few key facts about young brains, some things that may be very helpful to you. Babies are born with tremendous potential, and they are wired to learn from day one. Babies are born with billions of neurons, or brain cells, nearly all of those neurons that they will have in their lifetime. So they're born basically with all the brain cells they will ever have. But those brain cells are just waiting to be connected. When they connect, that's what's building the brain. About 2/3 of those connections, or those connections are called synapses, will be formed during the first 5 years of life. So how do those connections happen, and what can you do? These neural connections, or synapses, aren't just formed passively. Parents and caregivers play an active role in helping these connections to form. Interactions, experiences, talking, and so on. It's important to note that Vroom is built on these 3 key scientific principles. Number 1, positive relationships, positive interactions. Number 2, back and forth interactions, continuing to scaffold up the skill and the ability, the challenge to the child. So back and forth is speaking, listening to, responding to the child. And the 3rd is life skills that promote executive function. We'll dive into each one of these. But each Vroom tip promotes these 3 principles that we know are key to brain development, and the Vroom resources, like in the presentation and several files you'll see in forthcoming slides, all the resources are designed to share these principles more broadly. We'll look at each of these in turn. So we're going to start with positive relationships. I'm going to have a few of the science advisors that we have videotaped previously share with you about these principles to help you get a clearer understanding of the science behind it and the principle. These videos were produced by Vroom's sister program, Mind in the Making. It's a professional development and adult intervention program that examines executive function skills. There's a book by the same name, Mind in the Making, written by the Vroom Chief Science Advisor and Early Education Leader, Ellen Galinsky. Our first video this evening is featuring Dr. Sam Wang. Dr. Wang is an associate professor of molecular biology and neuroscience at Princeton University. One of those neuroscientists I said was one of the contributors to the research. His focus is on early brain development. He calls this early period of brain development a constant construction project where babies and small children are putting together the foundation for who they are going to become later in life. Let's see what Dr. Wang has to say about promoting positive relationships.
Babies give us the impression of not knowing very much because they can't talk. And so they don't have the tools to communicate with us. But that doesn't change the fact that they are constantly learning. We are big brain animals, and we get to be pretty smart. But babies that are born with the following challenges. Nearly all of their neurons are born. They have those, but they don't have the connections yet. So their connections between neurons, those are called synapses, are forming. But the big challenge is that they don't know what kind of world they're coming into. We're able to live on every continent. We're able to live in hot weather, cold weather, all kinds of conditions, urban, rural, whatever it might be. And these babies have to learn all those conditions. They have to learn languages, they have to learn social customs, and so on. And so they have to be able to adapt to a wide variety of circumstances. Most of the synapses are formed after birth because the baby's brain grows from 1 pound to full size. And so about 2/3 of those connections net get formed in 5 years. 5 years turns out to be about 160 million seconds. And so every second of that baby's life, it has to form some fraction of those 700 trillion connections. So there's this constant construction project where babies and small children are putting together the basic foundations for who they're going to become later. And to make an analogy, it's like constructing a house. And if you think about all the things that babies have happen to them, that we feed them, we love them, we talk to them, they have other experiences with other kids, whatever it is that they encounter, all of those are learning experiences. And so every interaction you have with a child, from infancy onward, is an experience that could potentially shape those tens of millions of connections per second that are being formed and unformed. And that house gets built.
Remember, I'm sure your reflection of what Dr. Wang had to share is running through your mind right now. Remember earlier I said that brain building is promoted through the interactions and the relationships the child experiences birth through 5? Positive relationships are essential ingredient for healthy brain development. Brains are built over time. While genes provide a basic blueprint or map, experiences and in the environment shape the process of development and build the brain from the bottom up. Dr. Jack Shonkoff, a pediatric researcher from Harvard and the director of Harvard's Center for Developing Child, states, when we talk about how the environment affects young children, we're really talking about, most importantly, the human environment. We're talking about those relationships. And there is no healthy social, emotional, and cognitive development in the absence of those relationships. There is no development without relationships. So think about that. There's no development without relationships. Positive adult-child interactions are essential for brain development. Vroom adds joy to that development and the learning process. In this next video, Dr. Patricia Cole from the Institute for Learning and Brain Sciences at the University of Washington shares a little more detail on what Dr. Wang's introduction shared with you. She shares some of the technology used, and that's interesting, to conduct the neuroscience with the babies, and elaborates on the delicate and sophisticated dance of the interaction between the parent and the child, and the special sing-songy voice that's used in communication with babies. In this video, Dr. Cole will also introduce examples of the second Vroom scientific principle, back and forth interaction. So let's take a look at this video now.
What we're trying to document is what's actually going on in the brain. And the experiments that we're doing now is in that period from 11 to 14 months. What we did was bring the babies in. They wear a nylon cap with 4 pellets in it. And the 4 pellets allow us to track the baby's head while they're in the NEG machine. MEG is the most sophisticated brain technology for imaging that we have. It's completely safe and non-invasive. So we get a movie of the brain, of particular areas of the brain, and how intense the activity is. As mom, Rachel was playing with Elodie, her 11-monther, while Elodie was in the MEG machine. And you could see the delicate and sophisticated dance between the two of them. She would move her toys and talk, and she was asking Elodie, do you want this toy or that toy? Or do you want, should we do this or should we do that? She was playing with her and singing with her, and you could see Elodie react. She moved with her eyes, she moved to play, and she would produce a sound or a number of sounds. She would produce speech-like utterances to direct her mother's attention. Oh. We're simply recording what goes on in the brain during that kind of activity. So our hypothesis is when the baby's listening to speech, and particularly parentese, the exaggerated speech, that the auditory areas are of course lit up, but that these motor planning areas are simultaneously lit up and also active. We use motherese or parentese to infants all the way through their health, so from 0 to 5. Parentese, unlike the popular notion of what baby talk is a simplified, really grammatical language that's in the here and now. So instead of a kind of flat, monotone, the way we often talk to other adults, it's got this sing-song increase in pitch. It's hello, how are you? So it's accompanied by facial expressions that are very dynamic, very exaggerated. After a lot of analysis, because this takes physicists and engineers and biophysicists to analyze these data, we can demonstrate that our hypothesis is true. It is supported strongly. The study is telling us that well before babies can actually talk, I mean, all they can get out is their first attempts at words and ba ba ba, ma ma ma. It's not only the auditory area that's lighting up, it's the Broca's area in the brain, which is responsible for planning to talk. What babies appear to be doing in this extremely early period is visualizing the actions. Their brains are simulating the actions that they would have to do to produce the things they're showing their mothers and fathers produce. We've told sports stars for a long, long time, they should visualize. If they see someone do an action, you see someone jumping off a ski lift, you should envision yourself doing that, making the basket, coming down the hill, skiing the slope, and your visualization helps. The image of the baby as a sponge, this was a discovery in the 90s. Babies are processing everything they see, everything they hear, everything that they experience, and they're processing it in a sophisticated way so we can now replace the sponge image with a sort of action brain, the brain that perceives in a sophisticated way that the baby's brain is built for action. This mother and baby illustrated that back and forth. The serve volley or serve and return is there very, very early and promotes development of all kinds, not just linguistic development, but also cognitive development and particularly social development. That's the baby that's going to move along the chain of development faster. And that's the new discovery. What I like to tell parents now is that the study shows that when they interact with their babies, when they do the simplest things like saying hello or the name of a toy, it isn't just that the baby's hearing it. The baby's doing more than just hearing it. What the brain research is showing is that it isn't only that their eyes are lighting up. So if you can turn that baby's eyes on, you should know as a parent that you're turning that baby's brain on very, very deeply.
That was Dr. Patricia Cole. She referred to the machine as MEG, and that's short for magnetoencephalography, which many of us would struggle probably to say a couple times. But so you see all that babbling and cooing, even the toe counting and singing are what prepares a child for language. A baby is using gestures and vocalization to communicate. That is their language. If we are able to coo back, we create a beautiful conversation in their language, precursor to our language. Scientists call this back and forth, this serve and return interactions. And this back and forth interactions shape the brain circuitry, the wiring. That creates activation between the brain cells where they connect, the synapses. That is what's building the brain. So let me give you a Vroom tip that illustrates this. This tip is called Changing Chat, and it's written for the parent of an infant. Here you go. When you're changing your child's diapers, make funny noises and see if, excuse me, you can make her giggle or coo. And then you giggle and coo back at her. See how many times you can go back and forth. Follow your child's lead and have a conversation with faces and sounds that both of you make back and forth. Now, the brainy background, that user-friendly language on the side, on the right side, by following your child's lead and also responding, you are building those connections in her brain, the synapses, that she will need for conversation and language later on. You are building a brain. All kinds of conversations help to build children's brains, even when they're still learning how to speak with words and sentences. Vroom offers us this great visual of how a brand new brain learns and grows. It's called the brain story, and it depicts how the brain grows and develops. So let's, excuse me, zoom in so everyone can read along. I'll read this from top to bottom. At the very top, a child is born with a brand new brain that is ready for anything. From day one, neurons or those brain cells are connecting, those synapses are happening, and that brain is learning like lightning. A key component of learning and growing is communication. We just heard from our scientists about how communication is key. So even before they're old enough to talk, babies are looking and listening and relating to you. So just as Dr. Cole said, your hi baby is parentese, and it's helping them to grow. You are a brain builder. You are nurturing future greatness, and Vroom is something that can show you how. We've now reviewed 2 of the 3 scientific principles. We've looked at the positive relationships and interactions. We've looked at more specific interactions, the back and forth that goes on between the adult, the caregiver, and the young child. So now we're going to look at that 3rd principle, life skills that promote executive functions. So what are executive functions, you may be asking yourself? Executive function skills include focus, the ability to pay attention, working memory, kind of like playing the game of concentration with a deck of cards, turned over and turn them over again. Cognitive flexibility, it's like knowing you can shout on the playground, but not in the classroom. And the last part, inhibitory control, the willpower, not eating that donut or, having that Coca-Cola, or not going on autopilot. Your brain is like the central processing unit of your computer. So building executive function skills is like you're constantly improving your operating system in your computer. According to our scientists, executive function refers to the top-down neurocognitive processes involved in flexible, goal-directed problem solving. Executive function involves managing thought, actions, and emotions to achieve goals. Executive function skills, are important to school readiness and school success along the continuum of learning and what we all want for our children. In this next film, you will hear from two more Vroom science advisors. Dr. Phil Zalazzo is a professor at the Institute of Child Development at the University of Minnesota and the director of the Zalazzo Lab. Dr. Adele Diamond is the Canada Research Chair Professor of Developmental Cognitive Neuroscience at the University of British Columbia. That's a mouthful, but I know you will enjoy what she has to share.
Executive function is one of these broad umbrella concepts because it's defined behaviorally in terms of what it is that people do.
What number comes after the number X?
It requires being able to keep information on mind, being able to remember the particular context, being able to think flexibly, and it requires being able to inhibit a tendency to do what one has done before.
Executive functions are what you need when you have to concentrate, when things are difficult, when things are unusual, when things are changing. If you look at what predicts how well children will do later in school, more and more evidence is showing that executive functions actually predict success better than IQ tests. Typical traditional IQ tests measure what's called crystallized intelligence, which is mostly your recall of what you've already learned. What executive functions test is your ability to use what you already know, to be creative with it, to problem solve with it. Is it going to go down? So it's very related to fluid intelligence, because that requires reasoning and using information.
If you ask teachers what it is that they think is the most important determinant of whether or not children are going to perform well in the context of their classroom, they talk about children's ability to pay attention and to control their behavior, all the kinds of things that executive function, in terms of this deliberate, goal-directed problem solving, is important for.
Executive functions involve the prefrontal cortex of the brain and several other brain regions that work in concert with the prefrontal cortex to make executive functions possible. This part of the brain is one of the last to develop, so executive functions emerge during the preschool years and into adulthood. They include a number of key aspects.
Yes, working memory, which is holding information in mind and working with it. Coming here. Cognitive flexibility, being able to think about something in a new light. There's no more K there. He replaced it with an H. Tell us the new word. Inhibitory control. So you want to inhibit distraction. There's also ambition at the level of behavior. Where you want to resist doing what might be your first impulse, but would not be the most appropriate or the best thing to do in that moment. Simon says, put your finger on you.
Because inhibitory control and the other executive functions are so critical to learning, researchers are looking at ways to help children improve them. And while executive functions emerge on a developmental timetable in children, their use must be promoted. In this example of promoting executive functions in a developmentally appropriate way, Adele Diamond of the University of British Columbia shows the child a picture of the sun and asks him to say nice when he sees it. This task is used to assess executive functions. When she shows him a picture of the moon, he should say day or morning.
What do you say when you see this? Yes. What do you say when you see this? Yes.
The little boy is going on automatic and making mistakes.
He was rushing himself. He wasn't taking the time he needed.
But giving him time to stop and think helps.
So what I did was to sing this little ditty. Think about the answer, don't tell me. You might think that it's interference, but instead it gives him the time to figure out the answer. Now can you tell me what you said? More. Think about the answer, don't tell me. Now. Next.
There are executive function tips written for parents and caregivers of slightly older children, preschool or kindergartners, as you see in this particular tip. Ask your child to focus, to figure out the opposite of what you're saying. You can say things like, I am so full, and your child would say, you are so hungry. Or you could say, this pretzel is so sweet, and your child would say, it's sour. Then you have your child take a turn. The brainy science background behind all of that, you're helping your child think on his feet and not go on that automatic mode when you ask him to respond with the opposite. He has to think. The concept of opposites, that there are things that are totally different, is one of the basic concepts that your child will use later in school and in life. As children grow older, these skills include reflecting, analyzing, planning, and evaluating. These skills continue to develop, and these are all the critical things that we are stimulating growth on by positive relationships with children birth through 5. Vroom has taken those 3 principles we talked about of positive relationships, back and forth interaction, and executive function skills, and broken them down into actions that make up a brain-building moment. So these 5 aspects here are called the 5 brain-building basics, critical things that make up these tips, the Vroom tips. You can see these are ingredients for a brain-building moment. These make up the tips. Look, make eye contact with your child or share a key focal point. Follow. Let your child lead, and you follow by responding. Chat. Talk with your child even before they can talk back or talk back in your language. They have their baby's language. You need to copy that and then gradually build into words and sentences. Take turns. Go back and forth and engaging with your child. And then stretch some of the moments. Make moments longer by asking questions or elaborating on what's happening. Like those questions that we asked earlier in the hair, you know, who has curly hair like yours, etc. Those are types of things that stretch the moment. So this is what makes up the tips. Look, follow, chat, take turns, and stretch. The great thing about these 5 brain-building basics is that most adults already do these things with their children. Simple daily interactions can help children thrive now and in the future. Everyone has what it takes to be a brain builder. Brain-building moments are all around us. Any moment can be a brain-building moment. I bet by now you're wondering how you receive these tips for you and your child. So, one form is through the Vroom mobile app. The Daily Vroom app provides bite-sized activities that fit into a daily routine, as we've shown. Sign up easily and free. Sign up is easy and free, and there are no advertisements on this app. It's available for anyone with an iPhone, Android, or Fire phone, a smartphone. You can get brain-building activities specific for a child's age. The Daily Vroom will offer you 1 tip each day at a time that you choose when you've registered on the app. And you can pull up additional tips from various activity categories. And you can sign up as many children as are in your care. Each tip inspires a personalized, fun activity or game for you to do together, promoting those 3 basic scientific principles we talked about earlier: positive relationships, back and forth engagement, and those life skills that promote executive function skills. Next to every Vroom tip, you can learn the science behind how each activity helps your child's brain, thanks to that user-friendly, brainy background. I love the user-friendly, brainy background. It really clarifies and simplifies. So the more you use it, the more badges you earn, and you can even level up and unlock new features. The app is very easy to use and wonderful, supportive throughout the day. After completing a tip, you can save it to your favorites or share it out on social media with a click of a button. I mentioned that Daily Vroom is just one form of getting the Vroom tips through the app. You can see these cards possibly around town which have Vroom tips on them, similar to the ones you saw on the slides earlier, but now you can print them off on pages. These can be downloaded, hear me, for free from the joinvroom.org website. Let me say that again, joinvroom.org website, joinvroom.org. If you just go in and you put Vroom in, you're going to get a lot of information about cars. So make sure you put Join Vroom at the beginning. And you can go in and you can print off hundreds of these tips. They're color-coded, they're grouped in age range, etc. And if you like the Vroom Facebook page, you'll see these tips in your Facebook feed too. Be on the lookout for posters and other Vroom materials around town. The Brainy Story and Brain Building Basics are also available flyers that you can download for free and print for free on your computer or at the library or in your agency. You may even see Vroom tips or the double O's, the small O and the larger O, on products in your grocery store, such as Johnson's Baby Shampoo, that's being pilot tested across the nation. And some of Marie's cookies also have a Vroom tip on them, the big orange ball with the suggested activity. So hopefully seeing Vroom around town helps remind us that brain building moments are all around us because we all are brain builders. Here's a listing of where you can find more information. Again, you see joinvroom.org, and then there's the social media platforms that you can go on to and find more. Some of the videos that we showed you earlier on YouTube, go into YouTube. Again, put Join Vroom in again, but you can watch multiple illustrations. They're not demonstrations because they are actually live parents and children, real parents and children, and they videotape them and they use those to show tips in action, brain building moments in action. So check it out. You'll enjoy it, and then download the Vroom app if you have a smartphone. We want to thank you for attending this webinar, the first in our series of informational webinars, Science Behind Vroom. If you have any questions that we'd like to engage and help you with, feel free to send them, or email them to the email address you see in the bottom left-hand part of the screen, vroom@usa.childcareaware.org. And also consider joining us for the next in our series of webinars. There are 3 webinars in this series. The first one we just saw on the science of Vroom. The next one will be on Vroom tips, and then the last one will be on the Vroom app more specifically. So should you have any questions, reach out to us, and be sure to come back for our next 2 informational webinars. Thank you. Have a nice evening. We appreciate your interest. Go out and Vroom. Good night.